Hey everybody, this is Hero back with a Dragonflight video, and we are checking out Mage Frostfire, the new hero talent tree coming to us in Dragonflight, and this one's awesome, guys. I don't often get excited about new trees and talent opportunities, but I think Blizzard is on the right track here. Maybe it's not entirely perfect, but I want to walk through it with you. What is the goal of this spec? Well, it's bringing back an old classic, Frostfire Bolt, which pairs together both fire themes and frost themes. And really, what's driving this is the introduction of a good new design space in my mind, offering Frostfire Mastery, which means that your damaging fire spells give you a stack of Fire Mastery, and frost spells give you a stack of Frost Mastery. You get haste for Fire Mastery, you get mastery increase in general for Frost Mastery for 1%. 12 seconds stacking 8 times. So you can, if you can get a lot of Frost Mastery quickly, you can stack up your Mastery, and then you can just maintain Fire Mastery's buff. This to me is so cool. It's basically giving you an additional mastery to play with, but it's done tastefully, because what it's going to enable as we work through this tree is for a Frost Mage player to take advantage of certain portions of the fire side and vice versa, but it's in the player's control which pieces they're going to incorporate into their gameplay from either side. And there may be that this gets solved a little bit, but it seems very complicated, which is good for the game. And what I mean by that is whether you ought to prioritize casting some frost spells or certain kinds of them when you're doing Frostfire Bolt spam, whether your build should be prioritizing lots of Frostfire Bolt casts, which is appealing to both sides, or whether it is very limited depending on what you're doing as a Frost Mage or as a Fire Mage. These things are all going to impact choices you're making. Second row, we have a couple of choice notes here. Elemental Affinity, Fire side, the cooldown of Frost spells is reduced by 10%. So Frost side, the cooldown of Fire spells is reduced by 30%. So if you're a Frost Mage, you get Fire spell cooldown, fine. If you're a Fire Mage, you get Frost spells. Again, just a bit more affinity there. Maybe this gives you certain thresholds with your gameplay to use the opposite style spell more often to proc some of the things going on in this mastery. Flame and Frost, Fire Cauterize resets the cooldown of your Frost spells with the base cooldown shorter than 4 minutes when it activates. That's pretty cool. Now, Cauterize as a defensive spell is not generally something we count on too much, so it's out of our control because it happens passively. But what this really gives you access to is other defensive pieces, right? Ice Barrier, a few other interesting things like Novas and Cone of Colds, these kinds of pieces that maybe are great, in part because all of those spells when they hit are going to give you more mastery. So there's some interesting gameplay here. Maybe in PvP you can see how this would give you access to perhaps a game-turning moment. We'll see. Cold Snap additionally resets the cooldown of your fire spells, right? So Fire Blast, which is off the GCD. Actually, I don't know if it's off the GCD for Frost. I'd have to check that. Maybe it's not. But the point is, it's still a spell that can, interact with the Frostfire theme here. So getting access to those off element spells is kind of interesting with Cold Snap. Frostfire Bolt. So this is like a standard spell from the past. It's sort of doing both sides of it. It gives you a damage dot. It does both kinds of damage, so frost and fire, so whichever one is better or buffed more, that's the damage it takes. Meaning if you have a damage amp to fire damage, your Frostfire Bolt does fire frost, but it benefits from the fire damage amp, that sort of thing. Same too for ice. It's a 2-second cast, which is reduced by haste, and it generates a stack of both of these. So you can cast this to gain Frostfire Mastery, and I think this is a really, really good design space, giving you this additional mastery that you then are pooling through the main filler button that you're going to press. A little more defensive stuff here, kind of cool. Meltdown means you can move while you're in ice block. That's kind of fun. I don't know how relevant this will be depending on how fast you can move, but maybe in PvP you can block behind pillars. Maybe in PvE you can block and still move your character out of mechanics. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes. But also this idea of doubling down on the Blazing Barrier, there's a bit more utility here. I don't know if 25% is enough, to be honest, with Imbued Warding, but I like it since each of those barriers offers something unique. This one, I think Imbued Warding of all of the pieces here is probably the weakest design. Isothermic Core, to me, again, really excellent design for a couple of reasons. Number one, you are merging together two spells into one, so you cast a Comet Storm, you get a Meteor. You cast a Meteor, you get a Comet Storm. And then the point is that you have the synergy of both spells. Hopefully, if they've done it right, each are building your Frostfire Mastery stacks, each are interacting on your tree side with its own stuff, so if you're casting meteors, you're getting the benefit of the patch on the ground, this sort of thing. Comet Storms likewise. Excess Frost. Oh, I should go in the middle here first. Here's just another choice note for us. Casting Frost or Fire spells increases the damage of your next Frostfire Bolt by 6%, so this is stacking up. This would be how to give yourself a longer cooldown, or you're doing other things in between casting Frostfire Bolt, but you don't lose the value of it. So maybe you have a build that's designed that way, so you're doing a lot of other burst. Maybe it's Glacial Spike stuff. I don't know. But the point is that you can index into a version that still gives you lots of damage, versus the other option, which just is more built towards casting this all the time. You get a reduced cast time on the spell itself. I think this is really good, guys. It's essentially centralizing for the players these two styles of using Frostfire Bolt, and then you can incorporate that however you like to either the Fire's playstyle, Frost playstyle, or within those two playstyles, something more AoE oriented, something more single target. You get to make those choices, and this is pretty seamless. Now the two Frostfire Infusion, your Frost and Fire spells have a chance to trigger an additional bolt, dealing Frostfire damage, and this effect generates the Mastery when it's activated. Again, think about it this way. You are giving more feedback into the loop. I know you'll have access to everything, so this is kind of like a passive. You might as well have just said Frostfire Bolt has a chance to fire another bolt to proc this. But the point is that the design is right, that you want, as you move through the tree in the initial thing, for the player to discover that Frostfire Bolt casts duplicating themselves creates this interesting feedback loop for the player. So I'm glad this exists. I know it's passive, so it sort of is baked in, but it's the right design idea that you want to give the player more and more of the interaction that you are feeding them in the hero tree itself. Excess Frost on one side, Excess Fire. These are kind of complex. Let's work through them. Reaching max stacks of Frost Mastery causes your next Phoenix Flames, the other tree, to cast Ice Nova at 200% effectiveness. When you consume Excess Frost, the cooldown of Meteor is reduced by 5 seconds. So a little bit more of an AoE focus here. For the Fire side, so you're a Fire Mage, and you are casting, when you get max stacks of Frostfire Mastery, you are your Phoenix Flames will also Nova. I'm assuming the Nova is going to hit at the location of the Phoenix Flames. It'd be a little awkward if you had to be in melee to maximize the use of this. When you consume Excess Frost, the cooldown of Meteor is reduced by 5 seconds. So then you're getting a little bit more AoE access. I like that we're pairing this with Meteor, by the way, because with Isothermic Core, you're going to be introducing more and more gameplay loop to build Frostfire Mastery stacks, because your Meteor is going to cast Comet Storm as well, which is a Frost spell. Your fire damage is also casting Frost spells, which is all linking into this Mastery system. On the Frost side, reaching max stacks of Frost Mastery causes your next Flurry to also cast Ice Nova at 200% effectiveness. I don't know in Mythic Plus if the Ice Nova cast by this will hit and freeze the enemies and give you essentially that crit bonus before the Flurry hits them. Again, it will depend on whether the Nova originates at the player or at the mob that is receiving the Flurry. But you can see how interesting this becomes, because one of the interesting parts of especially Mythic Plus is many mobs can be CC'd, but that little burst time where you can cast crit damage amps on them goes away very quickly because other players are also hitting them. So if it's happening instantaneously that the Nova and the Flurry are hitting, you're amplifying the damage of the Frost Mage in that moment, especially if frozen orbs are going out, that kind of thing. When you consume excess frost, cooldown of Comet Storm is reduced by 5 seconds. So do you see how they're pairing together complexity and adding layers of interaction so that you get Frostfire Mastery more often and therefore get to play with it more often, the benefits of it. Excellent stuff in my mind. Again, these are the passive ones. Fire and Frost are always going to be active for either spec, Fire Mage or Frost Mage. On excess fire, reaching max stacks of Fire Mastery causes your next Fire Blast to apply Living Bomb at 100% effectiveness. Again, another AoE spell passively being introduced for the Fire Mage. When this Living Bomb explodes, reduce the cooldown of Phoenix Flames by 10 seconds. Really good stuff in my mind. I don't know if this will justify us going down the Fire Mage tree in Mythic Plus for more Living Bomb synergy or indexing into the AoE side, but the point for me is that every single cast that you are giving the mage that is bonus or on top or passive is going to be interacting with Frostfire Mastery, which is enabling choices. And so, for my mind, all of these interactions, Comet Storms giving meteors and vice versa, Frost Novas going on for free, Living Bombs going on for free, all really quite nice stuff because they don't have to do insane amounts of damage on their own if the player is able to craft a build that produces a lot of them just by doing their natural rotation. Frost Mage, reaching max stacks of Fire Mastery causes your next Ice Lance to apply Living Bomb. So we get it on either side, just the general rotational pieces because you're stacking up Frostfire Mastery. Frostfire Empowerment. This is where it gets a little bit wild. Your Frost and Fire spells have a chance to activate Frostfire Empowerment, causing your next bolt to always crit, explode for 80% of its damage to nearby enemies, and be instant cast. Look at how this spell, in terms of the design of this hero talent tree, amplifies in the right sorts of ways all of the design that has come before it. All of the Frost and Fire spells that we're getting for free across these pieces that are interacting with the game, all of these focus into Frostfire Empowerment's damage amp. And the damage amp is encouraging you to do lots of stuff to get these Frostfire Mastery stacks. Frostfire Bolt critting, it'll really depend on what kind of spell power coefficient they eventually land on with this spell. But instant cast enables a lot of extra stuff for the spec. Again, if you think about Fire Mage and the cadence of casting Pyroblasts, instant cast, it feeds into that theme. If you think about Ice Lance casts for Frost Mages, similarly you get an interaction where you're preferring to have instant cast stuff. So maybe Severe Temperatures paired together with a really cool Fire Mage build that gives very consistent instant cast crits at the max stats of Severe Temperatures is in play, all of which is fed by the normal rotational pieces that build up stacks. Maybe that's an interesting single target option for you. Maybe all kinds of AoE stuff going on is giving you max stacks, and this allows your big crits from Frostfire Bolt. I don't know. There's cool stuff here, but the instant cast idea is that extra step of design that you're adding into the player's gameplay, which I think is really neat. Finally, Flash Freeze Burn. Frostfire Empowerment grants you max benefit of Frostfire Mastery and refreshes its duration. Activating Combustion or Icy Veins grants you Frostfire Empowerment. So this is tying it into major cooldowns, which is really cool, but the effect is also kind of neat. Look at again what Frostfire Mastery is saying for us. Your damaging fire spells generate a stack of fire, and frost generate a stack of Frost Mastery. Fine. Frost Mastery increases your mastery by 1% for 12 seconds, stacking up to 8 times. Adding stacks does not refresh the duration. Look at what this says. Refreshes its duration. So that means that inside cooldowns, when we hit our cooldowns, we are immediately getting the entire design handed to us. That is such good design on the part of Blizzard. You want the player to feel like pressing Combustion pressing icy veins makes you feel insane. And this hero talent really fulfills that. And it doesn't wreck the rest of the stuff going on. It just encourages it. It just means that maintaining those stacks is excellent. Because when you can keep them up right into your burst windows, you are hitting like crazy, and then eventually they fade off and you have to rebuild them. But capping it by doubling down on the benefit of the design, to me, is awesome. So I just want to make this video to walk through why I think Blizzard's on the right track here. Maybe you disagree because you think it introduces different design options that are not interesting to you, or you think it will make for bloat. My sense is it will not, that the gameplay will become reasonable, because your filler Frostfire Bolt is just going to be like what you're casting on either side, but it's incentivizing us to design our gameplay around maximizing interactions on either side of the tree, and that's exactly what it's designed for. I can see in my mind fire builds where this takes advantage of this, either by a bunch of casts of Frostfire Bolt or one every so often. I can see AoE builds that I want to try on either side. I can see lots of cool opportunities, and I'm just a PvE player. Imagine in PvP loading up a crit instant cast Frostfire Bolt. They're going to have a ton of fun with it. Just wanted to get that one out there since this is fresh. Let me know what you think in the comments. We will catch you guys again next time.